Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Priceless Podcast. I know that I said in our last published episode that this was the last episode for the summer, but there are some happenings within the European Union, or to go more specifically in Hungary, that happened a couple of weeks ago or even a week ago, and it was worth doing another episode and talking to my guest today about this topic and what's happening in Hungary, and maybe to hear what hope there is concerning that issue. So if there are going to be any links connected to this podcast, they're going to be in the podcast description, as well as the link to the Priceless webpage, and also how you can donate if you want to support this podcast. And of course, this podcast is still made in partnership with the European Forum, and the link for the European Forum you can also find in the podcast description. So let's go to our guest. I'm very thankful to Dani that he accepted my invitation to do this interview. I'm not gonna try today to pronounce his last name because I actually forgot to ask him to teach me how to say his last name. So I'm gonna ask him to introduce himself, his name and last name. And also, can you tell a few words about yourself? Hello, Dani, and welcome to the Priceless Podcast.
Hello, Mihail, and thanks for having me. I'm Dani Tóth from Budapest, Hungary, and I am a member of Mosaic, an LGBT Christian group here in Budapest, and I'm also a board member of the European Forum of LGBT Christian groups. I am responsible for communications.
And now I'm so sad when you pronounced your last name. I mean, it's not so hard.
No, it's quite easy.
So it's something I could have done, but oh well, there it is. So I actually asked you to be my guest for a specific reason, and there is something that happened within Hungary, and it has to do something with a new law. Can you tell us, the viewers and the listeners, a little bit more about what happened in case they haven't heard about this happening?
Okay, so a few weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, the Hungarian parliament introduced a new law, which was originally against pedophilia and pedophilic people. And then before the vote for this law, the Hungarian government, which is a conservative right-wing government led by Viktor Orbán, our prime minister, they introduced an amendment to this law, which was quite unexpected because it has nothing to do with pedophilia, but it is about the portrayal and promotion of homosexual and transgender people, and it bans the portrayal and promotion of LGBT people for under 18 people. So basically it is banned to display homosexual or lesbian or transgender people for underage children. And I think what is important is to see the context of this, because the Hungarian government, it is not, I said it was unexpected because even the opposition was on board with the pedophilia law, because there were some stricter punishments for pedophilic acts in it, and there was consensus about that. And then when this amendment was introduced, it was very unexpected because it has nothing to do with pedophilia, but clearly it was intended to stir up debate and controversy, because this is the usual tactics of the government and Fidesz, the governing party, and it. So there were it is in line with some previous acts and laws that were introduced, and there is a clear campaign against LGBTQ people, which is building up step by step. There was a law introduced in last December, which banned adoption for single people, which is in itself not against LGBTQ people, but actually before that, LGBTQ people could adopt as a single person, even though married couples were preferred, but it was still possible. But after this law, it is not possible anymore. It is very, very complicated and needs the approval of the Secretary for Family Issues, which makes it practically impossible for LGBTQ people to adopt children. And there were several other small steps building up this campaign about against LGBTQ people.
It seems like things are getting more and more complicated within Hungary concerning LGBT people. So with all these laws and everything and all these steps that were taken, what does it mean for the LGBTIQ community, the LGBTIQ people? How does it impact all of you?
Yeah, I would say that our daily lives have not yet been directly affected, in the sense that this law is very vague, the newest one also, and in some sense the others, the previous ones also, very vague, and I think intendedly so, because the main reason, I think, is provocation, like provoking a backlash, and not the specific what is written specifically in the law. So it hasn't had a big direct effect, but still it makes it harder to just exist as an LGBTQ person, because you have to on one hand you need to be more careful what you say, or now you have to think about whether you are displaying LGBTQ people for underage children. So it's always in the back of your mind that am I trespassing the law if I just present myself to children or just talk to children? Probably it won't be prosecuted because it's practically impossible, but still this feeling that you have to think about it, that maybe you are committing something unlawful, is terrible, I think. And on the other hand, it is clearly a sign from the government to right-wing extremists that it is okay to attack LGBTQ people because these laws say that they are not worthy of protection. So we can do, and actually we already see that these right-wing groups are emboldened by these kind of legislations.
You said that one thing that they want a backlash. So could you maybe say what kind of backlash do you think that they're expecting?
Well, so for Viktor Orban, it can be beneficial for him politically to stir up a controversial issue along which he can rally up his base, predominantly in Hungary, and part of it is the backlash from Europe, which we can see, thankfully, and we are really thankful for all those who raised their voices against this law. And I think Orban a little bit miscalculated this, because the backlash is much bigger than he anticipated. But to a certain degree, for him, it's beneficial because it rallies up his base. And that we could see this pattern earlier with migrants, because migrants were attacked in a similar way in Hungary a few years back, and then civil rights groups were attacked in a very similar way before. George Soros and his NGOs were attacked, and Europe, the European Union, was also portrayed as an enemy of Hungarian sovereignty many times. So this all these all follow a similar pattern, and now the new enemy are LGBTQ people.
What could this mean? You said right now there is nothing visible like as a problem or concrete an impact on LGBT people within Hungary, but are there any fears what this could mean for LGBT people in Hungary?
It's hard to tell. It especially because it's very vague. They can use it also to very harshly go against LGBTQ people, or they can just say, oh, this is fine. This doesn't fit in what is forbidden in the law. So a lot depends on implementation, and we don't really know what the government wants to do with this. The earlier legislations had more effect. For example, gender transition is not possible anymore after the law was passed 2 years ago. That is affecting trans people very, very hardly, and we know several people emigrated from Hungary because of that. But because of this big backlash from Europe and much harsher reaction, we don't know if this will stop Orban from going further, or maybe emboldens him, and he has a tendency to say, okay, if you say this is bad, I'll do double it and do more of it. So who knows? We will see.
I mean, you already started talking about Europe and the reaction of some countries in the European Union. Unfortunately, Croatia, of course, didn't react to that, which is also a little bit scary. But how do you see that? I mean, I hear a lot of positive things. Are there any other positive things coming with the reaction of the European Union? But also, do you see that there is some danger with these reactions, that some European countries reacted to Viktor Orban and even suggested, maybe Hungary doesn't need to be in the European Union anymore?
Yeah, this is also hard to tell. It is interesting. I think I have to say again, we are very thankful for all the countries and people who stood up and said this is not a good law and this is against human rights. But it is a typical pattern. I saw a map with the countries who agreed with this proclamation against this law, and all of them were in Western Europe, and none of the Eastern, or very few of the Eastern member states signed up for this proclamation. The only exception being the Baltic states. So it follows a pattern, and it is understandable because I think LGBTQ rights are in a very different position in Western European countries. They are more or less settled, so there is nothing politically to gain from opposing this kind of legislation. So what can another thing is that the reaction from the European Union and the European Commission was also much stronger than before in any other case against Hungary before, which is a sign, I think, and the commentators write in Hungary, that it might be a sign that the European Union is slowly getting fed up with what Orban is doing. And I think this is a good sign, because maybe they will go against him harder than they can stop him from going further. So I think this is a good thing.
Yeah, I like what they did, and I'm very glad that they stood up. I don't think that Hungary is the only reason that they kind of stood up and that they're getting fed up. It's not only Hungary, there is Poland, and there is still many countries, Eastern countries, where a lot of human rights are just being disregarded. And it's a huge problem. So I hope that this will be a wake-up call for all the Eastern countries to change their ways of how they're doing politics. What is happening in Hungary right now? What are organizations, especially, of course, human rights organizations and LGBTIQ organizations, doing after this amendment was brought to life?
I think what is also an encouraging sign is that there was a very quick reaction to this also in Hungary, and all the human rights organizations and NGOs reacted swiftly and organized a demonstration against it. I was also there. It was a really good demonstration with several thousand people, and even though it didn't stop the law from coming to force, but still it was a very important sign that this law is not a consensus in Hungary. So there are people who disagree with this law, and they raise their voice. And actually, it was encouraging to see how many people turned up to these protests, and also online. Like there were hashtags, for example, hashtags concentrating on "You are not alone," because it was pointed out that this law would be very harmful for LGBTQ youth, teenagers, who would be banned from getting information about what it looks like to be LGBTQ. And so against this, there was a trend to use the hashtag "You are not alone," so that these people don't feel abandoned because of this law. I also know from personal experience that it would have meant a lot for me as a teenager to be able to speak about these things and express myself or express my feelings. It wasn't possible for several reasons, but one of them was that this was a taboo, and it is getting less and less a taboo, at least until this law was voted. But we will see.
Do you think that this will impact the work of LGBT organizations in Hungary in many ways with some projects they did?
It will definitely. There is a project which brings LGBTQ people to schools where they can talk about their experiences and what it's like to be LGBTQ. And it was quite popular, actually. And now anyone who wants to talk about this topic has to be a registered organization, which, well, again, we don't know the specifics yet, but I'm pretty sure this program will be banned from schools because they are not really acceptable for the government. I'm also hopeful because on this protest there were a lot of young people, and I just saw also a poll conducted in here in Hungary, which said that a little bit more than half of people aged 16 to 59 are accepting LGBTQ people and not open to this kind of hateful propaganda, which is coming from the government channels day in and day out. So I think in the long term, we are heading in the good direction, and I'm really hopeful that Orban cannot stop us in the long term, even though this is definitely a setback in short term for LGBTQ rights.
I can see that. So the viewers at home might be wondering, I'm sitting here, I'm hearing this, and I really want to do something. If the viewers are not from Hungary, what can they do? But also, if you can say for viewers that might be from Hungary, what can they do?
Well, it is actually hard to tell because it's. I don't think we can do anything specific right now other than raising our voice against this law and saying it for what it is. A hateful propaganda law that does have a bad impact on LGBTQ people. But since the government has a big majority, we cannot really do anything against it. I think the European Union can do something, and they are doing something that is good. As an individual, if you are supporting or posting about this, that is the most that you can do right now. For people in Hungary, I can give you a short list of organizations who are doing good work explaining why this law is not acceptable, and then they can donate to them. I can send you links and you can put them up about that.
Please do that, and I will add them to the podcast description. Yeah, what else is there to say? Is there a way that people can stay posted about what is happening in Hungary and with this law? Is there like good information about this? Do you know about anything?
I collected a few articles in English that are available. I can also send you some links about that. It is not that easy to get good news from Hungary in English or in any foreign language. unless it is a sensational thing, right? Like right now, it reached the threshold where it became very public and everyone could hear about it. But I can't think of anything specific where you can follow up. But I'll send you some links which you can publish.
Okay, thank you, Dani, for being here and for telling us what is happening. I don't know if there is anything else that I didn't ask you and you think is very important to share with the viewers and listeners.
No, thank you for having me, and thanks for all the support that we are getting, and let's hope for the best.
Thank you, dear viewers and listeners, for being with us. I hope that this was informative and helpful about what is happening in the European Union, or as we said specifically in Hungary. All the links that Dani will send me will be or are at this moment when you are watching this or listening to this in the podcast description. So take a look and find out a little bit more if you want. I hope that we'll keep you posted if there are going to be any interesting news about this or steps forward. Let's hope that there are going to be steps forward. I wish you a beautiful summer. Don't forget to think about and actually support this podcast and or the European Forum. You can find all the links in the podcast description together with the links that Dani will send. So see you probably in September. Only if there is anything else that is urgent to tell you about, so we'll do another podcast about that. But for now, it's until September. So bye, everyone.